So for this part, I'll start with a reading from Ezekiel 17, 2 eagles and a vine. The word of the Lord came to me, son of a man, set forth in allegory and tell the house of Israel a parable. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. A great eagle with powerful wings, long feathers, and full plumage of varied colors came to Lebanon, taking hold of the top of a cedar. He broke off its topmost shoot and carried it away to a land of merchants, where he planted it in a city of traders. He took some of the seed of your land and put it in fertile soil. He planted it like a willow by abundant water, and it sprouted and became a low spreading vine. His branches turned toward him, but its roots remained under it. So it became a vine and produced branches and put out leafy boughs. But there was another great eagle with powerful wings and full plumage. The vine now sent out its roots toward him and from the plot where it was planted, and stretched out its branches to him for water. It had been planted in good soil by abundant water, so that it would produce branches, bear fruit, and become a splendid vine. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Will it thrive? Will it not be uprooted and stripped of its fruit, so that it withers? All its new growth will wither. It will not take a strong arm of many people to pull it up by the roots. Even if it is transplanted, will it thrive? Will it not wither completely when the east wind strikes it wither away in the plot where it grew? Then the word of the Lord came to me. Say to this rebellious house, do you not know what these things mean? Say to them, the king of Babylon went to Jerusalem and carried off her king and her nobles, bringing them back with him to Babylon. Then he took a member of the royal family and made a treaty with him, putting him under oath. He also carried away the leading men of the land, so that the kingdom would be brought low, unable to rise again, surviving only by keeping his treaty. But the king rebelled against him by sending his envoys to Egypt to get horses and a large army. Will he succeed? Will he who does such things escape? Will he break the treaty and yet escape? As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, he shall die in Babylon, in the land of the despised, and whose treaty he broke. Pharaoh with his mighty army and great horror will be of no help to him in war. When ramps are built and siege works erected to destroy many lives, he despised the oath by breaking the covenant. Because he had given his land in pledge, and yet did all these things, he shall not escape. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. As surely as I live, I will bring down on his head my oath that he despised, and my covenant that he broke. I will spread my net for him, and he will be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon and execute judgment upon him, because he was unfaithful to me. All his fleeing troops will fall by the sword, and the survivors will be scattered to the winds. Then you will know that I, the Lord, has spoken. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will take a shoot from the very top of a cedar plant and plant it. I will break off a tender sprig from its topmost shoots and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. On the mountain's heights of Israel I will plant it. It will produce branches and bear fruit and become a splendid cedar. Birds of every kind will nest in it. They will find shelter in the shade of its branches. All the trees of the field will know that I, the Lord, bring down the tall tree and make the low tree grow tall. I drop the green tree and make the dry tree flourish. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will do it. It goes on to the soul whose sins will die, the lament for Israel priests, rebellious Israel, judgment and restoration, prophecy against the south, Babylon, God, sword, judgment, Jerusalem sins, two adulterous sisters. All right, start there. We'll end it there, rather. And then the next one we'll get into 37, I believe, yeah. Ezekiel 23. The word of the Lord came to me, son of man, there were two women, daughters of the same mother. They became prostitutes in Egypt, engaging in prostitution from their youth. In that land their breasts were fondled and their virgin bosoms caressed. The older was named Olah, and her sister Oholibah. They were mine and gave birth to sons and daughters. Olah is Samaria, and Oholibah is Jerusalem. Oholah engaged in prostitution while she was still mine, and she lusted after her lovers, the Assyrians, warriors and clothed in blue, governors and commanders, all of them handsome young men and mounted horsemen. She gave herself as a prostitute to all the lead of the Assyrians, and defiled herself with the idols of everyone she lusted after. She did not give up the prostitution she began in Egypt, when during her youth men slept with her, caressed her virgin bosom, and poured out their lust upon her. Therefore I handed her over to her lovers, the Assyrians, for whom she lusted. They stripped her naked, took away her sons and daughters, and killed her with a sword. She became a byword among women, and punishment was inflicted on her. Her sister, Liba, saw this, yet her lust and prostitution she was more depraved than her sister. She too lusted after the Syrians, governors and commanders, warriors in full dress, mounted horsemen, and all handsome young men. I saw that she too defiled herself. Both of them went the same way. She carried her prostitution still further. She saw men portrayed on a wall, figures of Chaldeans portrayed in red, with belts around their waists and flowing turbans on their heads. All of them looked like Babylonian chariot officers, natives of Chaldea. As soon as she saw them, she lusted after them, and she sent messengers to them in Chaldea. Then the Babylonians came to her, to the bed of love, and in their lust they defiled her. After she had been defiled by them, she turned away from them in disgust. When she carried on her prostitution openly and exposed her nakedness, I turned away from her in disgust, just as I turned away from her sister. Yet she became more and more promiscuous as she recalled the days of her youth, when she was a prostitute in Egypt. There she lusted after her lovers, whose genitals were like those of donkeys, and whose emission was like that of horses. So you longed for the lewdness of your youth, when in Egypt your bosom was caressed, and your young breasts fondled. Therefore, O Liba, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will stir up your lovers against you, those you turned away from in disgust, and I will bring them against you from every side. The Babylonians and all the Chaldeans, the men of Pekod, and Shoa and Koa, and all these Syrians with them, handsome young men, and all the governors and commanders, chariot officers and men of high rank, all mounted on horses. They will come against you with weapons, chariots and wagons, and with a throng of people they will take up positions against you on every side with large and small shields and with helmets. I will turn you over to them for punishment, and they will punish you according to the standards. I will direct my jealous anger against you, and they will deal with you in fury. They will cut off your noses and ears, and all those of you who are left will fall by the sword. They will take away your sons and daughters, and those of you who are left will be consumed by the fire. They also strip you of your clothes and take your fine jewelry. So I will put a stop to the lewdness and prostitution began in Egypt. You will not look on these things with longing or remember Egypt anymore. For this is what the sovereign Lord says: I am about to hand you over to those who hate you, to those who turned away from you. To those you turned away from in disgust. They will deal with you in hatred and take away everything from you, everything you have worked for. They will leave you naked and bare, and the shame of your prostitution will be exposed. Your lewdness and promiscuity have brought this upon you. Because you lusted after the nations, defiled yourself with their idols, you have gone the way of your sister, so I'll put her cup in your hand. This is what the sovereign Lord says. You will drink your sister's cup, a cup large and deep. It will bring scorn and derision, for it holds so much. You will be filled with drunkenness and sorrow, the cup of ruin and desolation, the cup of your sister Samaria. You will drink it and drain it dry. You will dash it to pieces and tear your breasts. I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Since you have forgotten me and thrust me behind your back, you must bear the consequences of your lewdness and prostitution. The Lord said to me, Son of man, will you judge Oholah and Oholiba? Then confront them with their detestable practices, for they have committed adultery, and the blood is on their hands. They committed adultery with their idols, and they even sacrificed their children, whom they bore to me as food for them. They've also done this to me at the same time they defiled my sanctuary and desecrated my Sabbaths. On the very day they sacrificed their children to their idols, they entered my sanctuary and desecrated it. This is what they did in my house. They even sent messengers for men who came from far away, and when they arrived, you bathed yourself for them, painted your eyes, and put on your jewelry. You sat on an elegant couch with a table spread before it, on which you had placed the incense and oil belonged to me. The oils of the carefree crowd was around her. Sabians were brought from the desert along with the men from the rabble, and they put bracelets on their arms of the woman and her sister, and beautiful crowns on their heads. Then I said about the one worn out by adultery, now let them use her as a prostitute, for that is all she is. They slept with her as men sleep with a prostitute, so they slept with these lewd women, Oholah and Oholiba. But righteous men will sentence them to the punishment of women who commit adultery and shed blood, because they are adulterous and blood is on their hands. This is what the sovereign Lord says: Bring a mob against them and give them over to a terror and plunder. The mob will stone them and cut them down with their swords, and they will kill their sons and daughters and burn down their houses. So I'll put an end to the lewdness in the land, that all women may take warning and not imitate you. You will suffer the penalty of your lewdness and bear the consequences of your sins of idolatry. Then you will know that I am your sovereign Lord. So, in Ezekiel 23, verse 37, for they have committed adultery, and blood is on their hands. They committed adultery with their idols. They even sacrificed their children, whom they bore for me, as food for them. So remember, I told you about sacrificing to idols. Thank you. The children of idols. Thank you.